Welcome to the Career Refresh Podcast. I'm your host, Jill Griffin. I'm a former media and marketing executive turned career strategist and executive coach. I spent my career working my way up and through the ranks of global organizations and startups, and today I show others how to do the same. Join me each week as we discuss the strategies and actionable steps to leverage your strengths, increase your confidence, and develop your career well-being. Ready? Let's do it. Hey, welcome back to the podcast. Before I jump into this week's episode, I wanted to tell you about a new opportunity that I have launched, which is what I call the Strengths and Strategy session. It's really helping you gain an understanding of your talents, which I have found is the fastest way to create confidence, clarity, focus, and to really be in a possibility mindset. In the sessions together, it's a 2-session package. We'll work together to discover your top strengths and then work on how you use them and to find language that you can use them in any scenario, whether it's your resume, job interviews, networking, your LinkedIn profile, and even the day-to-day conversations that you're having with your clients, your peers, and your leadership. I work at the intersectionality of strengths. Think of me as a strengths tarot reader, but it's that intersectionality that really brings together your uniqueness. And again, it's what I have found that is the fastest way to create this confidence, hope, and conviction. So I'm going to put the details in the show notes, and I look forward to meeting you and doing this work with you. Okay, now for this week's episode. I have been seeing some consistent trends in the job market recently, and I was talking to my friend Lee Coles, who is also a career strategist, and she is seeing the same thing. She's been seeing very similar trends. So we wanted to jump on together today and share them with you. Lee Coles is an organizational psychologist. She is a career strategist and is a certified CliftonStrengths coach. She is the host of the CareerSequel podcast. It is the Return to Work podcast. And let me tell you, she is a master at helping people who are looking to return to work after a long career break. You can find her podcast wherever you stream your podcast, which is probably how you're listening to this one. All right, so let's dig in. Hi there. I am Jill Griffin. I am the host of the Career Refresh podcast.
Hi, and I am Lee Coles. I am the host of the CareerSequel podcast.
So today we are talking about career trends and the trends that we are seeing in the marketplace. And we wanted to share them with you, who we know many of you are job seekers, either looking to up level within your job, looking for new opportunities, or potentially returning to work after a brief absence. So the first trend that we are seeing is the return to work.
Yes, this is something that has been big in the news, just returning to work. And one thing that has just happened is recently is that many tech companies, Google, Apple, Microsoft, they've said, okay, it's time to come back to work. And I know even Apple is telling their employees, you need to come back to work Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And there has been a pushback because one of the things that people have really appreciated since the pandemic is the flexibility, the option of flexibility that people have experienced, have had the chance to experience since the pandemic started. If the pandemic gave us anything that was good in terms of workplace, it is freedom and flexibility. And a recent survey of 32,000 workers, 2/3 said that they would go and find a new job if they were forced to return to the office full time.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just jump on that too. And yes, I think that right now we are still hearing that employees have enormous negotiation power. And I'm with all of you. I hope that that remains. But I think we also want to be aware that the marketplace could shift. We keep hearing, as Scott Galloway would say, that the Patagonia of the best, realignment is going to be happening. So the idea that Silicon Valley and Silicon Alley have been having some pretty hard earnings calls and reports, and their stock is down, and that there may be some layoffs within that Patagonia Best crowd. And that just cracks me up because I think it's hilarious. So if that's the case, it also means the marketplace is going to change again. We don't know when this is going to happen. We certainly don't want to live in fear, but we want to make sure that whatever you're negotiating, whether you're staying in your job, up leveling, or finding a new job, that you're getting it in writing. So the idea that you're willing to work for a particular company, everything aligns, and you're willing to do 2 days in the office, I would make sure that that is in your offer letter. If you are a contracted employee, that it goes into your contract. However you're getting your terms, I would make sure that you have that in writing, because I think that there are certain jobs that will stay remote regardless, but depending on what's happening, especially if you're working in a company or an opportunity where collaboration and physical collaboration, like space to face, like if you're working in a creative environment or a marketing environment, and brainstorming and networking and working with people is a big part of what you do, I do think that there is going to be continued pressure. And what I'm also hearing is that there is what is the official word of what the company's stance is. And then I'm also hearing a lot of that individual department managers are saying, that's fine that HR or the company has said, you're coming in 2 days a week. If you're on my team, you're in 5 days a week, and this is what we're doing, or you're not going to advance. So again, that's a tough position to be in, which is why finding someone to help you navigate it, either a mentor or a career coach, can help you navigate some of that. But understanding that whatever you're getting as you're talking about return to work, make sure that you're getting it in writing.
That is great advice, Jill.
Yeah. Which then kind of leads us to the next area that we are finding the trend is that talking about LinkedIn. So if you think about LinkedIn is the most trusted search engine it's the most trusted social network out there. It is the 5th largest search engine, and that there are 3 people hired every minute off of LinkedIn. You gotta get your profile in check. I am seeing profiles where they have that banner behind them is still gray. We need to make sure that you're putting up a banner that promotes you. And I want to also ground you on what LinkedIn is. This is for you to promote yourself, not for you to promote your company unless you're a small business owner. And the second thing is LinkedIn is about the reader who's going to read it. So they want to read it in first person, making sure your bio is in first person. You also want to make sure that you're really strong in the about area and in your jobs in stuffing it with keywords. And when I say stuffing it, I don't mean the old meta trick of overstuffing the resume with like white on white type so that you can't see it. I mean, really making sure that based on the job that you're going for, you have those words in your LinkedIn profile, because that is what's going to come up in search returns. I also would recommend that you make sure that your individual picture is actually saved as what it is you do, because going back to it is the 5th largest search engine, your photo should be saved as Jill Griffin, career coach, right? If you are a marketing director, your name, marketing director. If you're a financial manager, your name, financial manager. Because again, let's use the power of search. And Lee, I know you had some things that you wanted to add about LinkedIn.
Yes. I was going to say that what I tell my clients is that LinkedIn, people think of it as social media, but I tell them that it is a search engine disguised as social media.
I love that.
Yeah. So you really need to make sure that you are putting your professional face on LinkedIn. Jill, you mentioned the about section. This is the section that is so underpopulated. People just like to shy away from it. They worry about it. They think, oh, I don't want to write anything.
Or they write it in third person and it sounds so silly.
Right. It's a lost opportunity. This is a way to like really help people get to know who you are. The great thing about LinkedIn too is you can develop real relationships on LinkedIn. Commenting and on other people's posts. And one thing that we're finding is this next generation, Gen Z, they are being referred to as the network generation. They are very, very comfortable networking on LinkedIn. They're on there already. I get connection requests from college kids, from kids in high school.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I love it, but that's crazy. That's new. Yeah.
Right. Even my son is a first year in college. His classmates, they are connecting with me on LinkedIn. They know the value of it. And just imagine all the people they're going to get to know, all the connections that they're going to have. So we can't be shy about connecting with other people, getting on there. And again, I feel like one thing that's different about LinkedIn from other social media is it's a little quieter. So when you talk, when you interact with people, people can hear you, and you can develop really genuine relationships when you're on LinkedIn.
And the other thing I would say about LinkedIn that I've noticed is, don't accept every invite. You want to network, but you want to think about the power of your network, where if I don't know you, if I don't have a reason to know you, meaning we're not in complementary businesses or adjacent businesses in some way, if I don't have anyone in common with you, we have no shared connections, I've never heard of your company, and it's not clear from your profile why I should accept your connection, you can be sure that I'm not going to. So whether you're making a connection or accepting connection, really think about the criteria that you want of the people in your network, because the power of my network is exactly that. My clients know that when they work with me, they get my network. So my network is strong and powerful in that it's not, they're people who are active on LinkedIn. They're people who are active in their roles, their jobs, their communities, and volunteering. They are people who are out there. I want to make sure that I keep the quality of that network. So I don't have to know you. But if you're going to LinkedIn to me and make a connection request, it should be a reason more than just the canned responses. We have some similar interests, Jill. Should we stay connected? That it needs to be more than that for me. And that's my personal opinion. You may have a different take on it, Lee. How do you go about deciding whether or not you're accepting connections?
Well, first of all, I tell people never just do the click,
the
click, click, the canned one. Always take those 2 minutes to send a personal connection request and introduce yourself, explain why you want to be connected. It should show that you've actually read the person's profile, that you have a genuine interest in what they do and that you care about what they do. And then just say, I'd love to have you in my network. So that's the advice I give to my clients, because it gets you started on a path towards a conversation.
Yeah.
And the best thing is when someone says, oh, hi, and the response to you can actually start a conversation. You can actually get to know people on LinkedIn.
Yeah. No, that's good. I'm going to move us on to our next tip, and this is around the resume. So again, whether you're promoting you're rotating to a new opportunity within an internal promotion, whether you're finding a new job or returning to work, this is still the standard tool. And my friends, you have to get past the ATS, which is the applicant tracking software. So we need to write a resume that is for other people. And here's the tricky thing so often about resumes is that we think the resume is about us. Your resume is not about you. I know it is about you, but it's about the person who's going to read your resume and what it is that they're looking for. Because remember, they have a big, huge, so what, why should I care bubble over their head, like a thought bubble. Think about it, right? They're like, why should I care about this? And we understand that there's 6 seconds that the person who's finding your resume, like the recruiter that's finding your resume, is spending 6 seconds before deciding whether or not to put your resume in the pile with others to go forth to the hiring manager. So you want to make sure that you are showing that you are a low risk candidate, and that if we bring you in for a conversation, that you're going to add value to the conversation and that you're actually going to be a substantial finalist. So a couple of things that I always say is that making sure that you are emphasizing and writing the resume for the next job, meaning don't just be a reporter. Don't just report on what you've done. Find ways with integrity. We're not telling you not to say anything that's not true, but find ways to showcase that you are ready for that next job. So again, it's not dishonesty, but finding ways to really show that you're currently already stepping into that position with the use of language so that, again, the person who's looking at your resume really, really fast knows that, oh, okay, I get this person's story. I see what they're about. I see how they could fit in this role. Yeah, let's bring them in. What are you seeing, Lee?
Right. I absolutely agree. I think the one thing that's so important is that the person who's reading your resume, they have to know that you have to be speaking to that person. So first step, go to the job posting, print it out. And I say you have to customize your job or your resume for each job posting. Print out the job posting, read through it and get a highlighter and highlight keywords and phrases that you see popping up. And you're going to notice that each job posting has these key words, key phrases, these themes that the company's looking for. Highlight those and then go to the company's website, look at their mission statement. When you read about the company, it only takes 2 minutes to look through, and you're going to notice again that each company is going to have these keywords and phrases that pop up, things that they're proud of, things that matter to that company. And then you have to look at your resume and make sure that those keywords and phrases that are in the job posting are also in your resume. And it has to be done authentically. You can't just stick them in a way, because maybe the ATS is reading it first, but then they're going to get into the hands of a human being. And a human being is going to call you in.
There was a trend for a while where people were turning the font white on a white background and trying to stuff. That trend doesn't work. The algorithm got smart. That trend doesn't work anymore.
I heard about that. That seems crazy. Yeah. So don't do that, because
it's clever until it doesn't work anymore.
You're going to look like a jerk if you do that. So don't do that. And again, it has to be this extends beyond the resume. When you go in, you have to be talking about how you're going to help that organization, how your skills apply to their problems. They are interested in solving their problems and filling their needs and growing their organization. So they don't really care so much about, they do care about how great you are, but they want to know how is that going to affect their company?
How are you going to make their lives easier? How are you going to help them achieve their goals, right? Again, that's what I mean by where I was saying the resume is about you, but it's really not. It's really about them. The other thing that I would add is I see a lot of resumes that people are buying templates off of Etsy or having people create templates for them, and they look really beautiful. If you are handing someone a resume or you are attaching it to an email, I'm still not a fan of those because they do eventually get dumped into the ATS, but that would be a situation in which it might work better. But that feels like a big slog to me to have two separate emails. Remove your photograph. Remove your photo from your resume. Stop putting your photo on your resume.
Please, yes.
Shrink your name. Again, if I have 6 seconds, if that's all the person has, 6 seconds, we don't want to have your name in 14 or 18 size font where you've just eaten up a second and a half while they're skipping their resume. The other thing is, please remove your street address. No one needs to know where you live. No. They need to know your town and they need to know your state. And I would also say, if you're in major metropolitan areas, you may want to list yourself out as the greater LA area for LA, California, or the greater Boston area, or the greater New York area. You don't necessarily need to list out a very small town that's a suburb if it's not well known, because the employer wants to know that either you're close by them or you're close by an airport in case you need to get together. And then the last thing that I'd say, and I know, Lee, you did a really fun TikTok about this and got a lot of opinions about it, is your email address. I literally got an email from someone recently that their email name was something like elephant, and it was like a series of numbers. It's like, no. Make sure your email address is as close to your name as possible. And if you use elephant123 at AOL.com for your family and your personal correspondence, great. Just set up a second email for your resume and for your job search. Lee, what are you seeing on that end?
Yes, absolutely. Also, if you've had a career break, if you've been out of the workforce for a while, you may have that Hotmail address that you've been using or an AOL, and again, like Jill said, if you love that and you've obviously been using it for a long time, keep it, but get a more updated professional address. Like Gmail is a really good one. And I do have to go back and touch on the formatting of the resume,
Please.
because if it's crazy, if you Google resume templates, you get all these beautiful things coming up with graphics and photos and tables, and you may think that that is going to be the way to get noticed. But first of all, the ATS can't process tables and photos and graphics. And then I've even talked to my recruiter friends about the colors, and they say no, like just, I said, well, what about if you just use black and blue? And they say, okay, maybe, but still it's kind of annoying. But in terms of the 6 seconds that it takes to look at a resume, if you have your resume set up in a really unique and funky way with different tables, the resume reader is going to take up half those seconds just trying to make sense of the resume. So this is not a place to get fancy, to show your creativity.
And I get why you would do it, because you want to make your resume stand out. But except now everything goes through the ATS, which is, it's AI, right? And the machine learning isn't smart enough to read past that.
Right. But even think about the human being. If you have a stack of resumes, you want them to be able to read it
great point.
Quickly. Yep. So put everything in the traditional space, no tables, use white space too. You don't want a resume that's just all words. Use bullets. Bullets are easy for people to digest. And use data like numbers wherever you can with your accomplishment statements. Make it easy so that your experience pops out. Again, key phrases popping out, which will make your resume get pulled aside and into the yes file.
Also, just because you said pop, it made me think of it. Like, make sure that of those top bullet points with that current job, the most current job and the most recent experience that you've had, make sure you're finding ways to describe your impact, either in percentages or dollars or performance metrics, right? You need to make sure that that is up in there too, because you want to be able to help them craft, like almost mentally craft the story. Like, oh, I see that she's done this before. She could probably do it here. Oh, look, she has this experience. Oh, look at her impact and her effort, right? So you want to make sure that that's up there too.
Right. Any data that you can give, anything more objective, tangible that they can hang on to is really going to help.
Yeah. So Lee, I know you help people who are returning to the office after a break. How do you see addressing career breaks in the work you do?
I think, another thing the pandemic has given us, it's helped normalize career breaks. Every single one of us knows someone who lost their job because of the pandemic. We've seen companies being shut down. We've seen parents being pulled back into the home to help take care of their kids, or we've seen people taking care of elderly relatives. So many different reasons why where people have taken career breaks now. So really, it's getting to be so much more normalized. So the big thing is, don't be afraid of it. Don't hide it. You just talk openly about your career break. Don't try to bury it. But another thing that people often do is, so many of my clients, when they've taken a career break, they come to me and they say, I haven't done anything. I've been out of work for a decade. I haven't done a single thing. And I can tell you that in 100% of those cases, they are wrong. And one thing that people do is they don't give themselves credit for unpaid work.
I was just going to say, just because you're not being paid doesn't mean you don't have experience. I mean, very often interns aren't necessarily paid, or they're paid as a small stipend, or they're doing it for credit. And we still value that work.
Right.
Yeah. And I love, Lee, that you said about career breaks, because I was recently working with a client who had worked for his company for about 20 years, got laid off at the start of COVID. And while it took some time off, found it really challenging in the beginning to find another job. We began working together and really honing that story. And he was thinking, like, what do I do about this space? Because he traveled around the US. He took time in his RV and went traveling and was like, if I'm not working and I have some money saved, let me enjoy this time. And then he was thinking, gosh, well, how do I position this? Because they're going to think I was goofing off and not taking it seriously. And what we were able to come to realize is that if you've worked for a company for 20 years, you're a loyal employee who's contributing. You're not goofing off.
Absolutely.
And my gosh, you should take some time off after that long of a stint. So anyway, 54 years old, just got a job. And it's a pretty decent increase in salary over the last job. I think some of that is also because he was homegrown for 20 years. He was getting the marketplace correction. But I share that as just yet another positive story that when you know how to position yourself and to get through what we think is like, oh, I wasn't working. How do I explain the gap in my resume, whether the gap was pregnancy, an ailing parent, raising a child, or unemployment? There's nothing to be ashamed of here. It's embrace those stories, own it. And his new employer loved it. They were like, that's awesome that you did that. They loved hearing the stories of some of his travel. So, those career breaks are not something to necessarily hide.
Right. We are multidimensional people. Like your client, whoever hired your client knows that he's been fed creatively in different ways. He has a lot.
Right.
Yeah. Nurtured, fed, refreshed.
Yeah.
And he's ready to return to work.
Right. And you also and I were talking about how LinkedIn has now started to have breaks as an opportunity on the resume. Do you want to talk more about that, Lee?
Right. It's a new feature that LinkedIn has where you can click this feature and it says career break, and it allows you to choose some descriptors for your career break as well, like travel or childcare or elderly parents. So many, I think there are 15 different explanations that they have.
That's awesome.
And I think
awesome. Okay. So let's recap. We have one more, but let's recap. 1 is returning to work, thinking about flexibility, getting in writing. 2, LinkedIn, use it. It is the 5th largest search engine. It's the most trusted social network, and make sure that your profile is in first person and is updated. And it's for everyone, regardless of your age. 3, your resume. It's not about you, even though it's about you, and make sure that you have the right keywords, that it's customized for the job, and that it's written for the next job. And then also we both mentioned some of those tactical things that you want to do to make sure that you update your resume to show that it's contemporary and fresh. 4, career breaks. No need to hide them. Normalize it. Make sure that you have your story down. Make sure that you have a career narrative. Work with a career strategist or a career coach or a mentor, or practice with a friend, even if that's best for you, that you're really nailing your story for why you have that career break and what you did with that time. And then the last one is about pivoting. And the way I look at pivot is making sure that you remember who you are regardless of the pivots, getting super clear on your strengths. If you don't know your strengths and you haven't had a chance to take an external assessment, then I would just ask you to pause and think about, when are you in the flow? When does time pass by? When do you really enjoy the things that you're doing? Those are probably your strengths. I then want you to think about your skills and what you're really good at, not because you can do everything, but what motivates you versus what burns you out. And then lastly, in remembering of who you are, is get clear in your values. Because if your values are in reciprocity, you have a really good chance at finding a company that's aligned to your culture. But if your values are not aligned to their company or the hiring manager or the people you're working with, you're going to constantly be in a values misalignment, and the work you do is going to feel heavy, and you're probably going to always feel like you're in the wrong place. It's been great, Lee. I really appreciate having this chat with you and kind of finding that both you and I, who service a lot of people, are seeing the same trend. So we hope that this is helpful to everyone. And if you have any questions, you can find our information in the show notes.
So great to talk to you, Jill. And I'm so happy to share you with my audience as well.
I love that. I love that. Thanks, Lee. All right.
Okay.
I'm sure I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Career Refresh podcast. If you're enjoying this and you want more information, go to my website, jillgriffincoaching.com. There you can find information on how to work with me one-on-one, or my group programs, or even bring me into your workplace. I'll put the link to my website in the show notes. But hey, listen, before you go, do me a favor, rate and review this podcast because it definitely helps me get the word out to people everywhere so that they can also thrive in the workplace. All right, friends, I appreciate you. I'll see you soon.